Nobody knows the real reason I started dressing like a girl. They think it was about finding myself or expressing my identity. They think it was some beautiful journey of self-discovery. But the truth is darker than that. The truth is about revenge. My name is Michael Scott, and this is what really happened. It started with a photograph. One that changed everything I thought I knew about my family. One that made me question every single thing my father ever told me about being a man. I was 17 when I found it tucked between pages of an old book in our attic. My mom had sent me up there to look for Christmas decorations. Instead, I found a shoebox hidden behind some dusty furniture. Inside were letters and photos I had never seen before. The photograph showed my father in a wedding dress. Not as a joke or for Halloween. He looked genuinely happy standing next to another man in a tuxedo. The date on the back said 1995. 3 years before I was born. 3 years before he married my mother. My hands shook as I read through the letters. Love letters written in my father's handwriting to someone named Gabriel. Letters that talked about dreams of moving to San Francisco together. About how much my father hated pretending to be someone he was not. About how scared he was of his own family finding out who he really was. The last letter was different. It was Gabriel writing to my father, begging him not to go through with marrying my mother. Saying that hiding who you are destroys everything good inside you. Saying that love should never require that much sacrifice. I sat in that dusty attic for 2 hours reading every single word, learning that my entire life was built on a lie, that my father had abandoned the person he loved to live some fake straight life, that I was part of that lie. When I came downstairs, my father was watching television like nothing had changed, but everything had changed for me. I looked at him and saw a coward. Someone who had chosen the easy path over the honest one. Someone who had probably spent my entire childhood trying to make me into the straight masculine son. That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about all the times he had pushed me towards sports I hated. All the lectures about being tough and standing up for myself. All the disappointed looks when I showed interest in art or music, or anything he considered too soft. He had been trying to fix in me what he saw as broken in himself. And I hated him for it. The idea came to me slowly at first. Like water starting to boil. What if I became everything he was afraid of? What if I stopped hiding the parts of myself he had spent years trying to crush? What if I showed him what happened when you tried to force someone into a box they did not fit? I started small. I let my hair grow longer than he liked. I began taking better care of my skin. I started wearing clothes that fit my slim body instead of the baggy stuff he preferred. Each change was tiny but deliberate. He noticed right away. "You need a haircut" became his daily greeting. "Why are you walking like that?" became his constant question. I could see the panic growing in his eyes every day. But I was just getting started. During one of my late-night internet searches, I discovered the Prism Stories website. It had this feminine size calculator that let me input my measurements. The results told me I had naturally feminine proportions. Perfect. I bought a book called My Closet Has Secrets and devoured every page. It felt like finding a manual for psychological warfare. The first time I wore makeup to school, my father nearly choked on his coffee. I had done it subtly. Just some concealer and a hint of lip gloss. Nothing most people would even notice. But he saw it immediately. "What is that on your face?" he demanded. "Nothing," I said innocently. "Just trying to take better care of my skin." His jaw tightened, but he could not argue with that logic. Not without admitting why it bothered him so much. Over the next few months, I pushed further. I convinced my mother to take me shopping for clothes that were technically from the men's section but cut in ways that hugged my body. Skinny jeans that showed off my legs. Fitted shirts that emphasized my narrow waist. I started doing exercises that made my hips more pronounced and my legs more shapely. My father watched it all happening with growing horror. He would make comments about me needing to bulk up or act more masculine, but I could see the fear underneath. He was watching his son become everything he had run away from in himself. The breaking point came during my senior year. I had been secretly ordering dresses and feminine clothes online, hiding them in my room and trying them on when nobody was home. The transformation was incredible. In the right clothes with the right makeup, I looked completely feminine. I had been planning to keep this private. My own secret rebellion. But then Jessica Thompson asked me to prom. Jessica was everything a teenage boy was supposed to want. Pretty blonde cheerleader from a good family. She had always been nice to me even when other kids were not. When she asked me to prom, I could see my father practically glowing with pride from across the room. That night I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of wearing a tuxedo to prom, I wore a dress. A beautiful blue gown that I had ordered online. I did my makeup perfectly and styled my hair in soft waves. When I walked into that gymnasium, I looked like any other girl there. Except I was not. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Some people laughed. Some people stared. Some people whispered. But Jessica looked at me with something I had never seen before. Understanding. Acceptance. Maybe even admiration. "You look beautiful," she whispered as we danced. "This is who you really are, isn't it?" For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger. I felt seen. Really seen. Not as a weapon against my father or a rebellion against expectations. Just as myself. But the night was not over yet. My father had come to take pictures before prom. He was waiting in the parking lot when Jessica and I walked out together. The look on his face when he saw me was everything I had been working toward. Pure terror mixed with recognition. He was looking at a ghost of his own past. We stared at each other across that parking lot for what felt like forever. Two people who had spent years running from the same truth in opposite directions. He had chosen to hide. I had chosen to expose everything. Finally, he walked over to us. His face was pale and his hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "You look beautiful, son," he said quietly. "Just like I did at your age." That was when everything I thought I knew about my revenge plan crumbled. Because in that moment I realized something terrible. I had not become feminine to hurt my father. I had become feminine because I was exactly like him. All my anger and rebellion had just been another way of running from who I really was. The three of us stood there in silence while other families took their prom pictures. My father seeing his past. Me seeing my future. Jessica seeing the truth that both of us had been too scared to face. 6 months later, my father left my mother. Not for Gabriel, who had moved on and married someone else years ago, but for himself. For the chance to finally be honest about who he was after 20 years of pretending. It destroyed our family in ways I had never intended. My mother cried for weeks. She felt like her entire marriage had been a lie, which I suppose it was. She blamed me for forcing the truth out. For making it impossible for any of us to keep pretending. I got what I thought I wanted. I proved that hiding who you are destroys everything around you. But the victory felt hollow and bitter. Because I had used my own identity as a weapon. I had turned something beautiful into something vengeful. Now I am in college trying to figure out who I am when I am not trying to hurt someone else. Trying to separate the parts of my femininity that are real from the parts that were just rebellion. Learning that identity is not something you do to other people. It is something you do for yourself. Some nights I still put on dresses and makeup. But now it is quiet and private. Not performed for an audience or designed to make a point. Just me alone with my reflection, trying to understand which parts of what I see are really mine. The real reason I became a femboy was revenge. But the real reason I stayed one is love. Love for the person I discovered underneath all that anger. Love for the father who finally found the courage to be himself, even when it cost him everything. We talk sometimes now. Two people who learned too late that the truth is not a weapon. It is just the truth. Beautiful and terrible and absolutely necessary. That is my story. Not the pretty version about self-discovery and acceptance. The messy, complicated version about family secrets and psychological warfare, and learning that sometimes the person you are trying to destroy is yourself.